And trust me, if you go organized way, it's not that much, and you can score still. Like, you target anterior abdominal wall. What you should know, there are 4 muscles. Where they are attached. 1. What is their nerve supply? And what are their action? Then rectus sheath is something. What is rectus sheath? Who makes it? And what are its contents? Then after that, anterior abdominal wall, what else is there? Hernia. And inguinal canal. Inguinal canal, thank you. Inguinal canal, what are its boundaries? What are its contents? One of the content you will be learning is spermatic cord. What are its different coverings? How it is being made up of? From where you derive it. Correct? After doing that, you are done with anterior abdominal. Then comes your peritoneum. Peritoneum, don't stress too much. Only you need to remember what is lesser sac, what is greater sac. What is lesser omentum, what is greater omentum. Epiploic foramina, what are the boundaries? Pouch of Douglas is where? And how infection can travel from here to there or not from vice versa. So you are done with peritoneum. Coming further, you have your stomach, esophagus. What are the narrow points, narrow places, constriction sites in the pathway of the esophagus? Lower end of the esophagus, esophageal varices. Stomach, its blood supply, venous drainage. Duodenum. For duodenum, you need to be good with its different parts and what opens in the second part. Excuse me. G. BG68. So, the duodenum, its different parts and where and what opens. After that, jejunum and ileum, you should be able to differentiate jejunum from ileum. Then you reach to ileocecal valve. What is its significance? What is important here? Cecum, what is attached to the cecum? What are the structure related to its posterior wall? Ascending, descending, transverse, only where is blood supply. Rectum, anal canal, what is the difference between above and below the line?
The
white line.
You mean?
The white line. The acute, developmental region and then columns of Morgagni and all those stuff. So then you are left with liver, supports, inferior relations, and portocover and anastomosis sites. From the liver, falciform ligament, what runs through it. After liver, you had gallbladder, blood supply, extrahepatic biliary apparatus, and then you are left with what? Pancreas, what runs above it, stomach, where stomach sleeps. What are the structure who are just behind the stomach, and what are the structure below the stomach. If you are done with that, along with knowing celiac artery, superior inferior mesenteric artery, and then portal vein, I don't see anybody who can stop you from scoring minimum B. That I can guarantee you, if you know this much. You want to go for A? Have to... No, I'm talking anatomy division. Physiology, it's not my subject, why should I talk? I can talk about pathology. I hope I'm clear.
Yes.
Now, I'm not bringing anything new to you today. Just a quick overview of what you have learned. So, to start with the ball rolling, what I like to start with, the anterior abdominal wall. I'll go from the basics. I'll touch upon the hernias and their mechanisms. And then I'll go for the detailing of the different contents of it. So there we are good with this picture. I don't want to put my time for this. We all know these landmarks. So I'm running fast on that. Any point which is not clear, ask me. Anything which you think is not clear to you. Now, the lymphatic drainage. Primarily remember, I'm talking about lymphatic drainage, not of the whole GI, lymphatic drainage of anterior abdominal wall. Superficial set of drainage and deep set of drainage. So superficial set of drainage, what we have, umbilicus, that's the landmark. Above the umbilicus, everything goes to the axillary nodes. Below to the umbilicus, everything goes to the inguinal nodes. So superficial, above the umbilicus to the axillary nodes, and below to the umbilicus, it goes to the inguinal nodes. Make sense? So that's the superficial drainage of anterior abdominal wall. That's it. No big deal. Deep, it follows the arteries. Deep, it follows the arteries. So we have parasternal nodes, para-aortic nodes, external iliac nodes. That's it. So no need to do too much. Don't stress out. Define, focus, to the point. Blood supply. You are looking at subclavian and axillary. This is my main interest here. What is this? This is my internal thoracic artery. It gives me superior epigastric artery. Because I want to utilize superior epigastric artery. That is a branch from internal thoracic. This one is interesting. So, because I learn, we will be learning rectus sheath. And what are the contents of the rectus sheath? We have superior and inferior epigastric vessels and rectus abdominis muscle. That's it. If you know this much, enough. So this detail we will be doing in cardiopulmonary. Don't look for these. Now, this is what my external iliac, who becomes femoral when it passes through the inguinal ligament. So my external iliac gives the inferior epigastric artery. They meet where? In the rectus sheath. So they are the content of the rectus sheath along with the rectus abdominis muscle. Make sense? And that's needed for today. So this is a deep blood supply of the anterior abdominal wall. Veins are the similar. Make sense? Anything which you need to be explained further? So now the superficial. We have the main veins, internal jugular and subclavian, make superior vena cava. There we have these veins who drains there. And down you can see the femoral and the internal iliac vein, and there are veins draining there. What is important here? My importance is the veins around the umbilicus. Where are they? They are not visible yet. Here are they. So these veins, who are so my focus is about the veins of the superficial veins which are around the umbilicus, and they are known as para-umbilical veins. Why I am focused for them? These are the para-umbilical veins. Once liver goes cirrhotic, there is fibrosis. So liver, everything which passes through the liver is being tightened up. So pressure, back pressure increases. So these veins, normally if you stand in front of a mirror, anybody looks into your abdomen around the umbilicus, you cannot see anything. But with these people who have cirrhosis, these veins become prominent. They become visible. And they look like a spider web. We call them, when they are visible, we call them caput medusae. So these veins, I'm talking about these veins, once there is an obstruction here, they become visible and we call them caput medusae. That's one of the cardinal signs of once you're dealing with some alcoholic who is suffering from cirrhosis of liver, this is one of the findings. Is this clear?
What is it called again?
Caput medusae. But caput medusae is a pathological term. For you, if you know para-umbilical vein, enough. Right? The disease, in the disease situation, we call it caput medusae. So if you don't know about it, ignore it. Now, just a quick recap over the muscles of the anterior abdominal wall. The first muscle which comes from above, the direction of fibers goes like this, like you are putting a hand in your hoodie. So external oblique. Internal oblique from below upwards. So opposite to it, 90 degree. So external oblique, rib 5 to rib 12. And this is my external oblique. Here you go. It goes towards the midline to meet the fellow, but not muscle to muscle. Muscle become epineuritic, and epineuroses blend with each other. And that place where they met, where they meet, that is becoming a white line. We call it linea alba. Linea line, alba white. Clear? So now these are the places where this muscle is attached. And now this is the linea alba, and this is the place where it's extending from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. That point of reference is known as the inguinal ligament. Am I clear? So what you need to be good with this muscle, what are the actions, how the direction of the fibers, and what is the nerve supply of this muscle. If you know this much, enough. And where it is attached. These four things. Where it is attached, direction of the fibers, action, and nerve supply. Can you do that? There are only four muscles, and their actions are quite similar to each other. So now, when it comes down, it folds like this. If you take a paper and you can fold it, so this folded part, I'm talking about this folded part, this makes the floor of the inguinal ligament. Going further, we have internal oblique. Now see what happens. Internal oblique, there is my thoracolumbar fascia, and it's going from below upwards. It begins its journey from here, and then these fibers are going upwards. And they again meet at the midline, in the linea alba. And these are the attachment points. Is that clear?
You have to know the attachment points?
Huh?
The attachment points.
Yeah, at least you should know it. These attachment points, I'm not saying origin insertion, but these attachments which have been mentioned for external oblique, for internal oblique, for transversus abdominis, only three. Good to know. Now, I call it transverse because it goes transverse. You agree? You can see that? They follow the same plan, and you should be good even with this attachment. Any problem with this understanding? Now, we learned that spinal nerve, we have 31 pairs in our body. The nerves who runs above the ribs, between the ribs, we call them intercostal nerves. Because costa is rib and vertebra. So between two ribs, intercostal nerve. So these nerves, you can see them traveling. They are coming down. They are running between these given ribs. And these nerves have been sandwiched between transversus abdominis and internal oblique.
And what supplies the external oblique? Nerve supply?
They all supply. There's a picture. So there is so now you can see the transversus abdominis and internal oblique, and in between we have these intercostal nerves. You agree? And then this is my external. And there is there are cutaneous parts, and there is my rectus abdominis, and there is it's been covered by anterior rectus sheath. These are the six-pack thing. Tendinous. This is my anterior rectus sheath, and you can see those cutaneous nerves piercing it. Is that clear so far? So what you need to learn out of these four muscles, their nerve supply, and this is their nerve supply, and that's their action. If you are good with this part, you are blessed. The rest what you need to know, only where they are attached. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, going further, rectus sheath. We know there is rectus abdominis muscle. To understand that, we make to have sections. One is above the anterior superior iliac spine, one is below the anterior superior iliac spine, at point A and point B. So this is above the anterior superior iliac spine. What we can see is skin, superficial fascia. There is no deep fascia. In the abdomen, there is no deep fascia. If some book writes, is just a representative, is just a non-functional fascia. So you have external, internal, and transversus abdominis. We all agree with that. Then we have rectus, because this is a cut section. So there is a rectus abdominis. Now, external oblique, its epineuritis goes in front of the rectus abdominis transversus abdominis, it goes behind it. And internal oblique, it splits around it. You agree to me? So this arrangement is visible above the anterior superior iliac spine. So it means when we say what is the difference between above and below, it means there is some difference. What is the difference? We'll be gonna reviewing it now. So this is about above. Now coming down below, we all set with this. See what happened? They are not like that. Here, the arrangement was external was going in front, transversus was going behind, and internal was splitting. But here, everybody is going in front. Nobody is going behind. So, the primary difference is below the anterior superior iliac spine, there is no posterior rectus sheath. That's it. That's the only difference. If you know this much, you score. Nobody stops you. So the difference is what? This. This is the only difference. There is no posterior rectus sheath below the anterior superior iliac spine. If you anticipate that, be rest assured you have scored. You will, if you remember this word of mine. Ask me. What are you asking?
Doctor, where's the, I didn't understand the above and below.
Good.
Where is the iliac spine?
Where are the three legs above this point?
Where are the what?
Three legs here. Why not we have three legs here? The arrangement is like that. Below you have three legs, above you don't. You have only one rod.
Okay.
So in front they go like this. Here everybody goes in front. Correct? Yes.
Above the anterior superior iliac spine.
Yes.
Do we have campus and scapus fascia?
Huh?
Do we have campus and scapus fascia?
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious because it's not shown on the.
My dear. What is campus and what is carpa?
Superficial fascia.
Superficial fascia has a fatty layer and a membranous layer. When I go down, when I'll be teaching you the pelvis, I'll be talking about Colles fascia, I'll be talking about Buck's fascia, I'll be talking about Scarpa's fascia. Who are they? They are the same. Only with the region we change our name. You are here. Let's say your nationality is Saudi. You start living in US, you get a US nationality. You are the same, but your nationality is changed. You are not changed. Got it? Huh?
You said above the anterior superior iliac spine that the transversus abdominis goes to the back of the
Rectus abdominis.
But below the anterior superior iliac spine, it just goes up front.
Everything goes in front. Nothing goes behind.
But above it, it doesn't go up front.
See.
The transversus abdominis.
See, my dear. This is my transversus abdominis muscle, and you can see it goes behind.
So
And here they all go in front. No one is coming behind.
So the transversus abdominis does not go in front above the anterior superior iliac spine.
No. Say loud.
If we come from above to below, how would it start to disappear?
This is the arrangement. This is the arrangement. If you want the details, my dear, we have to have time for that, which I don't have right now. I can talk on this issue, but it needs at least 2-3 hours to make you understand. But I don't see, after all that discussion, it is of any benefit because nobody is asking you this question. So now, we are set with this picture. Are we? Not yet. People are not figured out yet. This is my external oblique. This is the epineurosum. This is what we are learning right now. Agree to me? This is linea alba. Now, what I am showing here, inguinal ligament. There is a defect. There is my rectus abdominis. And there is something down these lines. What's wrong here? There is a defect. There is a gap. There is an opening. There is a channel. Because someone has gone through this area. So has created a doorway, a pathway, a passage, a remnant, a channel. that we give it a name. We call it superficial ring because it's superficial in our body. It is situated where? In the upper neurosis of external oblique muscle. You have noticed very clearly, external oblique muscle was a muscle above the anterior superior iliac spine, but below to it, it becomes just aponeurotic. It just becomes a sheet. Make sense? So we call it superficial inguinal ring, and what passes through it is the spermatic cord in cases of male and round ligament in case of female. Why? Because we were all females when we began our life. And then those who were different, they were transformed into males. And those, majority, they continued as females. So now our main emphasis now will be touching upon the spermatic cord and all that. So spermatic cord and the testis. What is spermatic cord? Is the connection, is the supply line for the testis. You have your computer, you need cables, you need Ethernet, you need wires, unless you have cordless activity. So these connections, the connections of the testis has to get out of the abdomen. Why? Because in the abdomen, temperature was high. And in this high temperature, there was not a possibility of having spermatogenesis. No spermatogenesis, no sperm formation. No sperm formation, none of us could have born. We have to filter out a lot. Here, freedom. So now, you're looking at the deep ring and the inguinal canal and seeing that how it is becoming superficial ring. Now, don't trust me. Let's make it. Let's go for it. I said this is the inguinal canal, its location, and this number 1 is the deep ring and number 2 is the superficial ring. So now come, let's do it. So we were just looking at the lower part of the external oblique in the lower segment of the body. Now we'll be looking at the internal oblique muscle. So this is my internal oblique, and you can see that it leaves a gap. And then we have name for it, lowermost arching fibers, and this part is known as the conjoint tendon. You agree? Why? There is a difference in color through this window.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? This color is different than this color. Because through this window, something is visible behind. If I don't put blinds here, you can see from outside if there is light inside. And this desk and the people will be visible from outside. Like you can see this tree and everything. Because there is light outside, so you can see the tree and the structures. So inside structures are visible, but I don't see transversus abdominis. I see something, a flat sheet. Because what I'm looking at is fascia transversalis, not transversus abdominis muscle. Where it's gone, we have to look for it. So, from this fascia transversalis, we had the beginning of the inguinal canal. So, my deep ring has to be located in the fascia transversalis. And my superficial ring has to be located in the aponeurosis of external oblique muscle. Make sense? So, this is my spermatic cord, and there you can see when it passes through the fascia transversalis, it drags the layer of the fascia transversalis. It don't pierce the fascia transversalis. It takes a wrap of the fascia transversalis. Along with that, you take chewing gum, you pull it, it don't detach. You can see that a part of the chewing gum is coming. Even it can break, but it can come as a line. So same alignment is being continued. So the fascia, the facial covering, which is derived from the fascia transversalis, is given the name of internal spermatic fascia, and the fascia which is derived from external oblique aponeurosis is given the name of external spermatic fascia. Yes, Ataya?
Does the round ligament do the same thing with the fascia transversalis?
Round ligament?
Yeah, in females.
My dear, in females, ovaries need not to get out of the body. Ovaries has to stay in the pelvis. So there is no spermatic cord or like such sort of thing, because only the round ligament comes out and without any gonad. Gonad stays in the pelvis. because female ovary has to be needed in the pelvis, not outside the pelvis. There is no temperature issue with the ovary. So only the remnant comes out and it blends with the labias. Got it? So there is no need for coverings. And if there is any, we need not to bother for that. So we are all agree that this is internal spermatic fascia, and we all have tracked down what is the source from where we have derived it. Thank you very much. Now I have dragged another layer that has been coming from internal oblique muscle, and this is a muscular layer. This is not a membranous layer. We call it cremastric fascia. If you tickle on the medial side, you can see the testis can move a little bit. Reason is you are tickling the internal oblique muscle, and by that you can see the reflex. Like this tickling, if you see a newborn, like someone is born maybe 2 days before, or 1 week, or 1 month, go to that baby, try it. Trust me, try it. Just put your finger and just do it here, like this. Don't be harsh, be gentle. And you can see after a little bit, the baby will assume, the lips will go like that, because now the sucking reflex you have generated. So baby will adopt, that baby is ready to suck out, because baby learns how to not this one. So how to suck out, because the first diet for the baby is the milk, mom milk. So baby is ready for, like those babies who don't learn how to suck milk, you just do this, and then you can see that lips goes like that, and you can try this. So same is happening down, you do it, you can see the testis move a little bit. Try it. So, cremastic fascia, everything is there. Now, we have dealt so far external oblique, we have dealt so far with internal oblique, now we are dealing with transversus abdominis. Why? What is happening? Oh, it's the same. So that's why we were not seeing anything through the internal oblique, because it is also arching here. But this arching will never contribute to the spermatic cord. The arching fibers of internal oblique contribute to the spermatic cord. So it stays as it is. Same is visible, same is happening. You all agree? Now, fascia transversalis, it continues below the inguinal ligament as femoral sheath. Femoral, this one, the extension, the femoral sheath is also the continuation of fascia transversalis. And this is the place from where he had the emergence of the inguinal ligament. Oh, sorry, the femoral hernia from the femoral canal. Make sense?
Yes.
So now if someone asks you how you differentiate a femoral hernia from an inguinal hernia. The lateral, anything lateral, and it's not going to the scrotum. Femoral hernia will never go to the scrotum, because it is far away from the scrotum. And femoral hernia is more visible in female. There are more reasons for that. In males, someone will bring up a femoral hernia, that's possible, but you can see a solitary swelling present in the inguinal, in the region, but it is way lateral to the pubic tubercle, because it's not following the track. You can see they are far away from each other. So now I can say one is medial to the inguinal ligament and one is lateral to the inguinal ligament. Can you figure out?
Yes.
This is my inguinal ligament. So medial to it is this, and then this is the lateral to it. So any hernia which is way lateral, it must be femoral hernia. And anything which is way medial must be the inguinal hernia. Is this clear so far? Now let's go further. We learned that the external, which vessel is this? External iliac gives inferior epigastric vessel. Not femoral. External iliac gives inferior epigastric vessels. So you can see that. So any hernia which is seen coming here is called direct. And any hernia which comes in this place, lateral to these vessels, is called indirect. But I will give you more logical reasons. So these are my inferior epigastric vessels. Now, transversus abdominis, we talked about it. So this point where I am putting the star, that is the place for the deep ring. And if a hernia follows deep ring and a superficial ring, we call it indirect hernia. And if a hernia which don't follow the deep ring, only comes through the superficial ring, we call it direct type of hernia. Well, physically talking, when you see the patient without opening, without doing surgery, sometimes it becomes difficult to differentiate this is a direct hernia or indirect hernia because you cannot see the inferior epigastric muscle. So when you open someone, then only you can see this is my inferior epigastric, and if the neck of the hernia is lateral to it, I call it indirect hernia. If the neck is medial to it, I call it indirect hernia. I will explain it to you a little bit with the developmental part. Just wait. Is this? I hope this point is clear. Any questions so far? So this is the indirect hernia, and the place where I'm putting my red arrow, this place, this is the site. If any hernia comes medial to these vessels, this place, the hernia is given the name of direct hernia. Right? So now going further, we know about these things, so let's not go in details. We agree with this picture. We know the different parts of the inguinal ligament, lacunar and the pectinate. This is a mid-inguinal point. Now, inguinal canal, inguinal ligament. Are we good with this picture? External oblique and its aponeurosis. Aponeurosis, linea alba, deep ring, superficial ring. They are connected, inguinal canal. But we are not sure what is this inguinal canal. Are you sure for that? No. How it is made, who contributes it, only we draw in the pictures. But how it is made, any idea? We need to look into that. So let's try to learn it. So why it is made? Why we need an inguinal canal? The first question is, we are learning it, but why we need to know it? What's the rationale behind?
Because some structures need to pass through it.
Some structure need to pass through it. Very good. So that some structure which needs to pass through it, in case of males, is the testis. So because of the need of the testis, to push testis out of the abdomen, we need to have a channel. So this channel is given the name of inguinal. It's like a canal, we call it inguinal canal. Why we call it inguinal? Why don't we call it umbilical canal? Because it's the region where it manifests is the inguinal part, inguinal region of our body. We learn to divide our body in different regions in the anterior abdominal wall. So going further, so the knowledge says there was gonad, it has to come down. This is my future testis, and this is the rope who pulls it down. This rope has a name. There is some source, you can pull it, the structure will get out. So this testis is being pulled by this red line thing, we call it gubernaculum. Very nicely said. That's the name for this structure. Right? So now, if a hernia, this is the brown arrow is showing a normal pathway for a testis. How a testis can come from the posterior abdominal wall to reach to the scrotum. That's the pathway. And there comes a nerve with that. So you have ilioinguinal nerve. So pathway taken by spermatic cord in male, round ligament of uterus in female, and ilioinguinal in both sexes. So this pathway transmits, this inguinal canal transmits spermatic cord or round ligament along with ilioinguinal nerve. Is that point clear? Stick to this point. So now let's do it. This is the testis or the ovary, we can call it. So now we know this is gubernaculum. So we pull it. Can you see that when the testis was descending, along the descent of the testis, at the time of the descent of the testis, a part of the peritoneum was also coming out. a peritoneal pouch was also coming out. This is natural. This is happening. And this descent of the testis along with the pathway of the testis is called as, this process of the peritoneum which descends along with the testis, we give it a name, we call it process vaginalis. This process vaginalis is an extension of the peritoneum. And it goes next to the testes. Now what happens? After a little bit, this process vaginalis disintegrates. Now, I have a question. If a child, if a newborn, whose process vaginalis has not closed, when he will born, what they do? They cry. When we were born, what we were doing? We were crying. The first thing we were asked to do was to cry. You know, when we were born, all of us, first thing which was essential for us was to cry. And those of us who didn't cry, the nurse or the doctor slap our butts to make us cry. This cry was important. Because the moment we cry, our lungs start functioning. Lungs start functioning, the heart's, the channel, the circulation pattern got changed. So this cry is important, and that is recorded. If a child born and he has a late cry, it has to be documented in his records. And you can see this child has diminished, has lower brain growth. And this cry pattern is given a name of Apgar score. And this scoring has to be documented. This child cried 5 minutes after he was born. So that is significant injury to the brain. Understand? So first thing we did, we cried. So when we cry, the child, you notice a child when he's crying, he exerts pressure everywhere. So a child whose process vaginalis is not closed, when he's crying, with each cry, you can see some loop of intestine will be passing through this process vaginalis, and you can see it's coming right into the scrotum or right on the pathway of the scrotum. So if a child born with this type of situation, and you can see a pulsatile mass which is visible in the scrotum or the pathway of the scrotum, that is an infantile type of hernia, inguinal hernia. But the blessing is, this process vaginalis, just after the descent of the testis, it get obliterated, it get closed, and the lower part of this process vaginalis, who was surrounding the testis, that was given the name of tunica vaginalis. And this defect in the peritoneum, from where this process vaginalis was coming down, that area has been closed, that area has been obliterated. So this process vaginalis does not exist. Otherwise, if it was existed, we could have all born with an infantile type of hernia, and we could have all gone, the first thing in our life was a surgery to repair, to close this process vaginalis and to not to have a hernia. Got it? This point clear? Everybody? Good. So now the process vaginalis is obliterated and we are having with tunica vaginalis. Now let's see what happens here. You agree with this situation?
Yes.
Osama, look here. Now, someone have a hernia. And by definition, we were told if a hernial sac passes through the deep ring, through the superficial ring, through the canal, we call it indirect type of hernia. So, process vaginalis was closed, but still there is a chance that loop of intestine can travel along with its coverings through the deep ring, through the superficial ring to reach to the scrotum. This we call as indirect type of hernia. You have seen it happening. So this is the pathway of indirect hernia. And this is a loop of the intestine which follows this track. Got it? Now, this slide is important. It's just
My back hurts.
Are you fine? So now let's level it. 26th week is important. I was talking, you will see the same, but a little bit more scientific. Peritoneum, we all agree?
Yeah.
We all agree this is the testis? We know someone pulls it down. Gubernaculum, where is that? There we have the canal, deep and superficial ring. Agree? There is the gubernaculum. You are pulling it. It's pulling it down, and process vaginalis is descending down.
What is the gubernaculum? What is it?
Gubernaculum,
It takes it down. Okay, but what is it?
it's something a cord who brings it down, but where it goes, that we need to explore. So just be focused here. So this testis, the one who pulls it down, is pulling it down. Can you see that happening?
Yeah.
Now peritoneum also sharing with that, but it's not connected. And this is my process vaginalis. So gubernaculum brings the testis down, further down, it reach, and this process vaginalis also coming down. So where the gubernaculum gone? Any idea? So this gubernaculum, it anchors the testis with the wall of the scrotum to the dartus muscle, and now we call it what? The scrotal ligament. Make sense? So that becomes the anchor. The one who brings it out, pull it, bring it to its position. Some children, when they cry, you can see something interesting. Some parents may bring it. The testis move up, go down, move up, go down. So their testis has not been fixed. So they are called retractile type of testis. The testis, by a little bit action, they can move because they are not anchored. But here, the gubernaculum, if gubernaculum functioning nicely, it can anchor it. And this process vaginalis, which we learned that it has to be obliterated. So it goes off, peritoneum is closed, and this process vaginalis stays as the tunica vaginalis. Make sense? Is this concept clear?
Yes.
Good. Now, going back to the inguinal canal, still we are not developed how the walls are formed. But people are talking boundaries. Where are the boundaries? So, this is one, I like to take it out. Out. To make my concept more clear, I like to make it from a cylinder to a cubical sort of thing, to a rectangle. So to make it a rectangle, that clears who's anterior, who's posterior, who's superior, who's inferior. So just go for a, are you with me? So let's make it out. The deep ring. From where it has come? Just trust me, this fascia transversalis, but I have to prove it yet. Superficial ring. External oblique. Posterior wall. Fascia transversalis. But why I am saying that? I have not proven yet. Wait. And this is the floor. This is the interior wall. And this is the roof. Got it? Who passes through it? The vas deferens. Spermatic cord is a combination of all that. But vas deferens along with the testicular artery and vein, and there is a nerve for that. Where is the nerve? Yes, here you go. So these are the contents of the spermatic cord. And then each layer of the abdominal wall muscle, it drags with it. And these coverings are external spermatic fascia, internal spermatic fascia, cremastic fascia. Agreed?
Yes.
So now we have to develop that. So there is another nerve who is passing through the inguinal canal, but it's not the content of the spermatic cord. That nerve is ilioinguinal nerve. So it don't go through the deep ring. It pierces the roof, but it gets out of the superficial. So when it passes through the testis and the spermatic cord, when they passes through the epineuritis of external oblique, there we call it as the external spermatic fascia. Hello? You don't know?
No, let's stop it.
Guys, are you clear so far?
Yes.
If anybody disagrees, you can raise your hand. I'm ready to explain you again. Yes.
I don't understand the somatic
That's difference. I can't see you.
Vas deferens is a structure. Vas deferens is a tube. Its job is, after spermatogenesis, the product of the product of testis is sperm. So how the sperm will reach to the urethra? So this is the tube which carries the sperm from the testis to the urethra. Right? And testis is a living organ, so it needs an artery, it needs a vein, and it needs a nerve.
So the vas deferens is like inside the spermatic cord?
Yeah, it's a tube inside the spermatic cord. And this tube is transmitting, like you have a oil well. How you take the oil to some other place? So you take a pipeline. So this is a pipeline. Now, still there are little bit things which we need to learn. So I am bringing it again, the concepts. We learn this picture. We call it external epidural of external oblique. We know it is bending. Anterior, posterior to deep. I know this slide is a little bit tricky. You don't understand how. So this in front, this is anterior, and this green is posterior, one after other. So green is what? My fascia transversals, and white is what? Epidural external oblique. So there is my vas deferens. It runs through the inguinal canal.
With all its contents.
Yeah, with all its contents. Because testis is moving, testis carries its artery, its vein, its nerve, and its tube. So this is the superficial ring, and this is internal spermatic fascia. I know this slide is tricky. So let's wait for the next slide. Don't stress out here. Yeah, this is better. We all agree this is anterior part. This is derived from epidural of external oblique. This is a folded part, we call it inguinal ligament. This is the pubic bone. Two muscles attached to it, pectineus and adductors. This is skin. We have superficial fascia. Superficial fascia has a fatty layer and a membranous layer. They are called as campers and scarpus. Now the fatty layer and membranous layer are given the names. We don't have deep fascia in the abdomen. So there is not mentioned here. Who's this grey thing? I'm talking about this grey thing. Who's this? No, fascia lata. And this fascia lata is the one which prevents, if you have a damage in the urethra, urine does not go below in the legs and urine does not go above. So there's a concept. Otherwise, someone has damage to the urethra, the urine start leaking in the whole body. So there is some bonding, there is some line. This is a conceptual mechanism. I don't want to bring it here, otherwise you'll be confused. We'll talk later when we'll be talking about pelvis and perineum. Are you clear so far? So most anterior you have skin, then you have campers and scarpus, and then you have epidural of external oblique. You all agree with me?
Yes.
So you are looking at skin, superficial fascia, epidural of external oblique. This is the anterior part. Posteriorly I have fascia transversalis. This is my fascia transversalis. Agree? There is my peritoneum. There is a spermatic cord. It has the vein, artery, vas deferens, and a nerve. You all agree with me? You may ask me, you are talking one vein, now you are showing tympaniform plexus, from where it has come. So tympaniform plexus, they meet together and they make one vein. And that vein is given the name of testicular vein. And testicular artery, when it comes down, it divides and divides and divides. So you are looking at so many. So there is, from above, we learned that there were two muscles which was arching over, leaving a gap over the spermatic cord. So these two muscles are internal oblique and transversus abdominis. So they are making what? The roof. Agree?
Yes.
And through these muscles, we had the ilioinguinal nerve. And see now, anterior wall. Who makes it? Tell me. What is visibility? Epidermis and external oblique. Agree?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Who makes the floor? Inguinal ligament through its folding.
The posterior over the roof.
And who makes the posterior wall? Very good. Very good. And who makes the roof? So now, do we need to memorize who makes the anterior wall, who makes the posterior wall, who makes the roof, and who makes the floor? It's all in front of you, and you have made yourself. Now, let's go for the concept. Vas deferens, artery, vein, nerve. This is what to begin with. The gonad begins with that. This is the supply. They pass it through the fascia transversalis. They drag the layer from that. And this green round where they enter, that's a deep ring. This green thing, internal spermatic fascia, we derived it from fascia transversalis. Agree?
Yes.
They pass through the cremastic fascia, which is derived from internal oblique. They pass through epidermis of external oblique. So layers. And deep ring is the green thing.
Yes.
And there is a testis, ultimately, because these are the connections for the testis. This is my spermatic cord, testis. So now, you wear your garment, you wear your shirt, your cardigans, your jackets, everything layer by layer. So what are the layers here? First layer, your shirt, your cardigan, your jacket.
What is garment?
Cardigan you don't know? Tell him.
This guy, I don't know the
Cardigan, it's just like a thin jacket. It's mostly so
Thank you. Thanks for helping. Is it clear now? The idea is to make you understand. Okay? So now, this is the deep ring. Look at the arrow. Which arrow I'm talking? I'm talking this arrow.
Yes,
This is the deep ring. And this is the superficial ring. And this whole distance from green to grey is called inguinal canal. Make sense? Let's do it again. This is more conceptual. My fascia transversalis was artery. I'm not putting vein here. They drag a layer with it. Deep ring. And this green thing which is being pulled by, that was given the name of internal spermatic fascia. It passes through the internal oblique, and that contributes here as the cremastic fascia. And then when it reaches to the external oblique, it drags the external spermatic fascia. And this is my superficial ring, and that's my deep ring, and this is the inguinal canal. Is this clear now?
Yes.
Now can you tell me how the inguinal canal is formed, why it is formed, and what are its boundaries? Is this concept clear?
Yes.
Any question? Now it continues as spermatic cord with all its coverings and layers and everything. And you can see, if you cut a section, you can see all 1, 2 and 3. Make sense?
Yes.
A quick, now this will explain you where the transversus abdominis muscle, why it is not participating. Now, this is my fascia transversalis. Vas passes through it. Artery, vein, nerve. Agree? Internal spermatic fascia. No?
No.
Transversus abdominis, there is no contribution from here. There is a gap. Internal, now this is my internal oblique. So this is cremastic fascia.
Yes.
External oblique.
And then the
External spermatic fascia. Inguinal canal. Spermatic cord. Make sense? Now see that the ilioinguinal nerve is the content of the inguinal canal, but it's not a content of the spermatic cord, because it don't go through the deep ring. It pierces the roof
goes
it runs in the canal, it gets into the superficial ring. And this is something additional, hernia. Got it? Indirect. This is indirect hernia. Because it passes through the deep ring, superficial ring. Now, review it. Got it? This is just a description. Now, this slide is important. Why is important? We did this all so far. We know this, the indirect hernia pathway. And this place, Hasselbeck triangle, what is that? This is the Hasselbeck triangle. Who makes the base? Who makes the base? Inguinal ligament. Medially, laterally what do we have? Inferior epigastric vessels. And medially you have rectus. So I'll be explaining this. Hasselbeck triangle. Base, inguinal ligament. Laterally you have inferior epigastric vessels. And medially you have rectus abdominal. You need to memorize that. Any hernia which passes through this Hasselbeck triangle is the direct hernia. It will never pass through the deep ring. You can see that it's far away. And it's medial to the inferior epigastric vessel. And the lateral one coming are the indirect type of hernia. They pass through the deep ring, they pass through the superficial. Is this point clear? So this is the place from where we can have the emergence of the femoral canal, femoral hernia. So now femoral hernia, femoral canal, we did it. Vein, artery, nerve is always outside the sheath. Pectineus muscle, iliopsoas. This is the hernia, femoral hernia. And now this is the neck of the hernia. So this is a deep and superficial ring. So any hernia, indirect hernia. Thank you very much.